you as a person?
I think it's one of the hardest ones to work through
Hmm.
because we we as individuals are so dehumanized from birth. Whether it's growing up in a household where we're told that we're not good enough, or we go to a job where we don't know what we're doing, but we're hired on to learn, and those around us are saying, "Well, you're not doing this right. You're not experiencing this properly." Um, Even on a spiritual level, if you don't do it this way, you're wrong, and therefore you are devalued. Um, Systems of oppression that have been put into place by the government, that devalues us as well. When we find out that why there's a reason we don't talk about our pay at work, right? If you find out that somebody's making more than you, well, how does that make you feel for the same work? And we should be discussing our pay. We should be talking about that because that helps to balance the playing field. It helps to create value within ourselves. This is something I struggle with daily. I couldn't even tell you the amount of lack of value that I think I find within myself and my work.
Mm.
Uh, and others others see it completely different. But why do I not see it that way? And that's the real question. Um, I don't know what I have value within. That was something that we talked about yesterday. Or the Thursday? What makes us happy, right? I have no idea because I don't have value and I don't hold value in what brings me joy, brings me happiness because I don't know.
Thank you, Jared. That I have a spin-off question that I'd like to ask everyone, but I'd like to be with the question at the moment, also with Randy and Hemant. What do you feel is your value?
So is what I hold in the highest of value,
Mhm.
what value I offer to others?
Let's go with both, because we're getting into a higher stakes conversation here about what do we hold value in, and what do we see as our value, to others.
Uh, well, what I value more than anything is humans. It's, I don't know, kind of long story to keep it point is when I was at my bottom and I was suicidal on a scale of 1 to 10 of wanting to kill myself. There was a lot of days it was a nine, 8 and 9. I was hovering around there for several months. And it was from people just being patient and kind with myself, loving me when I couldn't love myself. Um, Long story short, a gentleman asked me such a profound question. If you can't love yourself, Randy, can you let God love you? Which I replied, yeah, well, I guess that's not too big of a question, request. And he said, good, then can you let God love you through this fellowship? I was a member of AA, or, I was at my bottom. My bottom was not when I stopped drinking. It was about 7 months in. So, and there's been a series, and that was the hinge point. But so people have helped me in ways that I believe is the manifestation of God. There was the patience and kindness, love that was beyond theory. It wasn't a theology loving God. It was a human being loving me. And I believe because it was extraordinary, at least to me, and life changing for me, that I see that as this God as the source. Um, Now, what I bring is I try to model that if I can be present and see you and appreciate you and value um, without any type of expectations from you. You do not need to meet any type of, I don't know, expectation. You don't need to be nice to me. You don't need to be kind to me, even. Um, Although I appreciate that people, and I'm only a human and stuff. But in regards that, yeah, even if somebody's, as long as you're not threatening my life or other human beings' lives and stuff, I usually I'm able to see something that is worthy of my attention and my appreciation. Um, and I think I'm able to pull that off. There have been people that have made comments that my presence has helped them. So that's my answer.
Thank you. I want to reflect as well too that to be able to hold space for people who are challenging you, but in reality, what they're doing is they're struggling with their own feelings. I think the value that you offer as well too is being able to hold a space, which I think is like an oasis, which is something that is very, very rare, so that people can work on their own stuff. So that's what I've been observing, specifically with you, is that high, and I consider it a high skill. I my assumption or the story I'm telling myself about you is that you've been through so much that it's become easier for you because you do have so much empathy. But I consider that a high skill, a very high skill.
And again, it's just me paying it forward.
Come on, what do you see as your value? What do you love about yourself?
After hearing Randy conversation, I get to the conclusion this is the thing might be I'm missing, right? Holding a space for others, right? And at the same time, the first thought came to me is I'm selfish, right?
Hmm,
Uh, this is the thing. When we talk about value in the first place, we need to talk about the cause and effect, right? Because value is the effect to me. Something we do or something we be is resulting in the effect value. So if my value is doubtful in the first place, then I need not to check value. I need to check myself. It seems like there is something that I have yet to explore on from within me to know exactly. But as far as the conversation I heard, the thought come to me is I'm selfish, right? I need to be
hmm,
more selfless. At the
hmm,
same time, loving, right? Selfish in terms of, right? This is the thing I'm struggling to put it into words. Sometimes this might be my selfishness, right? Idea over people, right? We might be pushing the idea is correct. Instead, we are not. We are not doing what we are meant to be. If we keep on doing that, doing what we are supposed to do and what we are meant to do, we will never question value in the first place,
hmm, hmm,
right? Because we are valuable, in
hmm,
short.
hmm,
So this is the thing I'm arriving at.
hmm. I'd like to reflect something about what you said earlier too, about how, what first came up for you is that you felt that you were selfish. My question to you, Hemant, is it really possible to be selfless or to be loving if you don't love yourself first? So maybe selfishness is not a bad thing or something to be judged, because if you're loving yourself and giving yourself what you need, is it possible that that's what's needed to feel like you are able to be able to give? It's just something I wanted to ask you. Ask you, how do you feel about that? How does that proposition land on you? That maybe selfishness is not a bad thing or something that needs to be judged.
Mm, yeah, for sure. To reflect back what you said, Mike, I always think selfishness means not serving someone, right? This is the thing I'm trying to overcome by getting comfortable with being myself and taking care of myself as of now. Because we always crave attention from someone to make sure we are not lonely as a human being. But we never get our attention straight and focused on ourselves in the first place. This is the thing I'm working on, right? But I need to make it as my priority first. From what the conversation I heard, I need to make it my priority, and then only the place of space where I can hold for them will appear. Yeah.
Yeah, you're definitely onto something. It's making me reflect on to a video that I made yesterday about how this concept of I'm the only one and these concepts of individualism and looking at that from that selfish perspective, but it's not. We feel that it is because we're told that it is. We are raised in environments or philosophies that if you focus on yourself, if you work on yourself, if you take time for yourself, that you are viewed as selfish. And to the point where it always made me think about when you get on an airplane and the safety videos they on there like, oh, put your mask on first, then help people next to you. And it always sat with me wrong. And I'm like, well, why would I not want to help others? I need to make sure that this kid next to me has his mask on, or the pregnant woman next to me that she's taking care of. But you can't help anyone if you're unconscious. So it is important to put your mask on first. And we don't look at it as this because we are so focused on the self that we forget about the community. We forget about the fact that we can have others give us a hand with healing and give us a hand with removing this block of selfishness. Because, like Randy was saying, it's all about humanity, right? We're all here for each other. But we isolate ourselves because we're terrified of what people will think, of what people might say, of expressing our feelings. Again, because society tells us that there is no value within that.
Mm.
We have that we are meant to be the victim. So we sit in that and we place value in victimhood.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What comes up for me too, Jared, is is the dichotomy of service to self, service to others. There was some channeled material that was written about that years ago, called the Law of One, that was channeled by Ra, where there was this polarity, and this is the expression of law of polarity. It was claimed that you're either service to self or service to others, um, which is uh, which is interesting to me because in the Egyptian mystery schools, there was a left eye of Horus, which corresponded to the right brain, which was about the creative, the intuitive, and the feminine. There was the right eye of Horus, which corresponded to the left part of the brain, which was the logic, um, the math, the sacred geometry. But what does not get expressed often is that there was also a third eye of Horus school, where it was the integration of the two, service to self and service to others, that created something different, something that was a synthesis of the two polarities, which is law of one, law of divine oneness. So that's what comes up for me is that our society, especially European culture, you know, wants us to kind of align with either the good or the evil, the light or the dark. But when the two are synthesized, when they're blended, it's almost like in science, it's like an annihilation. When two opposite particles collide, they annihilate each other. It releases an energy, far more greater than the sum of its parts. So that's what, comes up for me when reflecting on why we have divided ourselves into, having to be the victim, or having to be the martyr, and having to be the one who serves, but also, being able to take care of ourselves, being able to serve, what helps us to feel full so that we can. So yeah, so that's what's alive for me at this moment. Um, and how natural law comes into this as well, observing it. Right. So at this point in the conversation, we're almost about an hour in. I mean, it's kind of it's fascinating how, when we're in Kairos time, and our authenticity, how fast the time flies. So at this point, I'm going to put in the pre-recorded material, which is very much, in the left brain, with numbers, and it's really introducing the accounting system of how to distribute a $5 quadrillion asset through time banking. So the the proposition I make in this material is that redistributing global wealth from an accounting perspective, or from a numbers perspective, is pretty easy. It's relatively pretty easy. What the hard part is, what the difficult part is having the conversations where we can be honest, and we can compromise, and we can collaborate, and we can take responsibilities for whatever, like you had said, Herman, earlier, whatever, no matter what you do, it's going to be seen as evil to somebody. So how do we have those vulnerable, authentic conversations where we trust, first of all, trusting the people who are in our immediate space, and then eventually trusting ourselves and trusting our partners, so that we can finally reach across the barriers to people who have a whole different value system. So I'm going to go into the accounting system now with the pre-recorded material. So I'm going to pause here and go to that. All right, welcome. This is the supplemental material for the law of compensation. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to go over some of the logistics, some of the accounting system of how to make universal basic income possible based on the time banking system. So before I begin, there's a few things I do want to say. I do want to point you in the direction and show you that time banking is a thing. I learned about time banking through Edgar Kahn's system, which is timebanks.org. Edgar Kahn is I kind of think of him as the father and the founder of time banking. He passed away, I believe, last year. So timebanks.org and ourworld.org. That's HOURWORLD. Ourworld.org is also another organization that kind of points you in the direction of learning about time banking. What is time banking? And the Karmic Margin Call Project is an Our World time bank. So you might have noticed that at the top of every single conversation, I mentioned that if you are a member of the Karmic Margin Call Project, you can log all of the hours that you are watching this material as a service provided. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to provide the link to the application to become a member of the Karmic Margin Call Project Time Bank. That's going to be on the page here for Law of Compensation. And I want to say that the reason why I save this information to the closer to the end of our time together is because, in my opinion, accounting for and redistributing global wealth is really the easy part. What the hard part is really building trust in each other, and really learning through experience that there really are good people who really want everybody to live a happy life, and to find happiness, and to be able to work in harmony. So I'm hoping that by this point we're on the 10th session of this natural law series. I hope by now that that the people that you've met in these conversations and getting to know me as well, that what we really want is to just help humanity evolve, help humanity transcend the need for greed and war and addictions and really the time banking system and the universal basic income part is really just a measurement of how far we've come in being able to treat each other like equals, to treat each other better. So let me look at my notes before I go on. So I'm going to go into a little bit about the accounting system and also that I think with the emergence of AI, all of this becomes a lot easier. It's just a matter now of helping each other understand, how this works, how to change the value of time. And again, I'm going to mention that if these numbers and these concepts that I'm throwing at you at this time, if you don't get it, if you don't understand it, that's okay. You don't have to understand it. One of the things that I think will be helpful is helping others to look at this material, understand it, and help us to regulate. So when we go through this, I'd like to call attention to the law of rhythm that we did a few months ago, and Kylie Stedman Gomesh's work in kairotic flow. There is a archetype called the regulator. So a lot of this work is really for people who are comfortable in the regulator role. So again, I believe because of the emergence of AI, managing and distributing universal basic income is really easy. The hard part now is having people come to the table and treat each other like equals and with respect and understanding, how to work together. So I think that's everything I need to say for the introduction. Let's go to the presentation. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce you to what is an EPE number. So EPE stands for Equal Partnership Economy. So when you come into the time bank, the Karmic Margin Call Project time bank, and you're beginning to understand this information, what you are agreeing to is that you and everybody else in the time bank is entitled to the $1 investment that compounds upon itself 20 times, which is $1 million in return. So I'm going to talk a little bit today about the accounting system that makes that possible. It's not magic. It's not advanced intelligence or anything like that. It's really just simple math and really just treating each other as equals. So that's why we call it the equal partnership economy. So in order to receive an EPE number, there are three things that happen. One is that you join the time bank. And again, I will have a link to the application on the Road Counselor page for the law of compensation. So you join the time bank. You can invest whatever you want whenever you can, but it is a $25 contribution to participate in the financial management portion of this. So I will say that the time bank, is available to anyone. You can use it. It doesn't cost anything to be entered into the financial management system. It's $25 for the contribution, and usually that's for an annual contribution for most time banks. For us, it's to cover 20 hours of service, and I'll go into a little bit about how that works here in a minute. So, three things: you join the time bank, $25 contribution, and then you start exchanging hours. So, if you are watching this entire natural law series, you will be earning 20 hours of credit, probably a little bit more than 20 hours of credit just by watching, this presentation. So what happens is after those three things happen, you join the time bank, you put in the $25 contribution, and you're starting to work towards your 20 hours of service credits. You're going to receive an EPE number from me directly at the moment. So one of the things I want to say here is that the biggest help I need right now is people who understand the system and can help me manage the EPE numbers, because that's where we really start to get traction, and that's where you start to see the financial growth of the regenerative economy through time banking. So this is an example of an EPE number. And I'm going to break it down as to what each of the numbers and the letters actually mean, so that we're starting to speak the same language and you start to understand how this is distributed. So the first thing is the O6. Okay, so 6 represents the series number. So I'm going to refer back to the material that we had covered back when we were talking about law of gender and ancestral mathematics, where 2 becomes 4, 4 becomes 8, 8 becomes 16. So in this case, if you receive a tracking number or a EPE number with a 6, that means that is part of series 6 in the regenerative economy. So at the moment, series 6 has 64 shares or 64 hours. So hopefully that, well, there we go. Now it's highlighted there. So that means that there's only 64 shares at $1 an hour, that you have entered in on. So what that means is that there are 64 shares available. Once those 64 shares are out, and once there are 64 members of the time bank under that series, we go on to series 7, where there is 128 shares. So the next portion of it is PA, and that just represents the region. So Pennsylvania is the state that I live in. So it's Series 6, and it was issued to someone who is a resident of Pennsylvania. It represents the demographic region. Okay, so I'll have codes for all 50 states in the United States, and also coding for different countries, different nations in the world. The next letters are simply just your initials. It just kind of makes the number more unique to you. So that's my initials, Michael Sheeman. And I will say that this is not an actual EPE number. This is just a sample. We're still working on Series 5 at the moment. So Series 6 will hopefully start to be filled within the next couple months into the next year. Now this sequence here is the timestamp. So if this were one of my original shares, which I started issuing back in 2022 when I started doing the timestamp. This is just the date. So this was issued. If this were a real number, it just carries the timestamp of August 12th, 2022. It starts out with the year, the month, and the day, just the time stamp exactly where that share was issued. And then the last number is the sequence in the series that it is. So there's 64 shares in Series 6. This just represents, because it's number 64, it's the 64th one, and that means it would be the last one before Series 7 is issued. So so there would be 64 members of the time bank entered in at Series 6, which would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up through 64. So again, this is just kind of like a dummy EPE number to demonstrate the system. But whenever you join the time bank, log that 20 hours of service, and also contribute the $25, that's when you get one of these EPE numbers. Okay, so moving on. All right, so the next portion here, I want to talk a little bit about AI because when you're talking about the trillions and into the quadrillions, it's very difficult for humans to process. It's very, very difficult for humans to handle that massive amount of data. So there are just 3 points of data needed to make universal basic income accessible to everybody if AI is programmed to handle this. So I'm going to make myself disappear here for a moment. Here we go. So that we can go through that list. All right, so the first point of data is the assignment of the EPE numbers. If that is automatic and if that is assigned as people are contributing their time to the time bank and then contributing the $1 per hour or the $1.25 per hour, which is represented in the $25 contribution per 20-hour block, the EPE numbers are assigned. If AI takes over that, then it's it's pretty equitable. It's pretty easy for everyone to participate in this and it not be a financial burden. And there's no favoritism, and there's no saturation of the market, is there uh, nor is there insider trading or anything like that. Because whenever those 20 hours hit, whenever that contribution hits, boom, you get the new EPE number, and it goes through automatically. Um, and then comes the second point of data is really just the amount of credit in the treasury. So, for some people, $25 for an annual membership, or $25 to cover a 20-hour block, it's nothing. To some people, it's very, very difficult to be able to contribute that amount. So I say to people, if you're having those conversations, you're having those living library conversations, ask others about the $25 loan. So really, the loan is not really to another person so much. It's really kind of loaning the bank, which is what banking is anyway, which is what bonds are. You're just loaning the bank, loaning the bank the credit so that it can accomplish its goals. And the goals of this time bank is to make universal basic income available to everyone. So that's why I think it's important to have that conversation, that if the $25 contribution is difficult for you personally, how to have those conversations. Most of the conversations I've had where if it was about a $25 loan that I would pay back with interest in 2 years, most people say, don't worry about it. Just just take it. I trust you. Let's see what you do with it. In other cases, people will start asking questions. It's like, well, wait a minute. If this $25 contribution that I'm making is going to help you make the return of $1 million, how can I start to understand? And that's where you start to have the conversation that you're not really lending the money to another person. You're lending the money to the bank, and we're all owners of the bank. That is what a decentralized economy is really starting to point towards, that nobody really owns it or can own majority shares. We accumulate shares based on our effort, based on our time that we are dedicating to it. So yeah, that's the second point of data that AI can keep track of, in addition to the EPE numbers. And then finally, it's about the hours served. And my hope is that as more people are understanding this equal partnership economy system, that I can talk to other time banks about this, so that it's not just the karmic margin call projects, method of time banking. We share this with other time banks, and there are time banks all over the world. So again, timebanks.org and ourworld.org are two of the systems that you can look into to be able to start to play in a time bank. So the hours served is the third point of data that again, I would like to see this happen universally in all time banks. So that's where the $25 contribution makes it at a rate of $1 per hour. All right, so moving on to our final place. Yes, and my daughter is joining me at the moment, and good thing I'm not on video, I am on audio. So yes, I am in a meeting right now. I'm in a meeting that I hope a lot of people will be able to listen to at some point. So I'm going to put myself back on camera here, and maybe my daughter will join me. So some of you have probably seen my daughter Eloise in a previous recording. Okay, good. You stay in the back, and then I'll be back and say hi, and we'll go to bed soon. Okay. So how do we obtain an EPE number? So this is just a review. So remember, an EPE number just measures and recalibrates your block of service, your block of time that you are providing. So yeah, so there it is again. The $25 contribution to the Treasury. And I want to also say that is never mandatory. Everything is voluntary. So again, you can use the time bank, and you can participate in the time bank, and there is no financial commitments or obligation to it. This is really just let me move myself up here, maybe turn my camera off again. So again, this is just to participate in the financial management portion of it. So I want to make that very clear that you can log as much time as you want in a time bank, and then whenever you can, make that $25 contribution for your 20 hours of service. That's completely, completely up to when you can and if you want to. So that's that's the beautiful thing about this. Everything is voluntary. So again, if you're logging 20 hours of volunteer service, watching this natural law series will be more than 20 hours. So you've already did your time, so to speak, to be able to earn that $1 million, what we call stewardship account, to help you do what you need to do to be able to survive and thrive in the competitive economy, because we're going to make it collaborative. But the cool thing is, as you're logging these 20 hours that you are serving or that you are providing or volunteering, you're also able to negotiate services from other members of the time bank, because you put an hour in, you receive an hour back. So that's why I like to start with the living library, where you're starting to build relationships. I will say that as a board member and as part of a leadership team of a time bank, I've noticed that time bank hours, doing time bank exchanges, often become difficult because there's these assumptions about what somebody is worth based on the amount of money they make, and the trust is not quite there, because if you do a time bank exchange with someone, you want to trust that they're going to be competent at the services that they're providing. That's why we do the living library first, so that you can build the relationship, build the hours as well, before you make those exchanges, of professional services or more, more of those kinds of services. So again, it's kind of like, for instance, I'm helping a friend create a business plan. And that's the cool thing about this, is that everything that I'm describing here is in a 55-page business plan, if that's something that you're ever interested in seeing. But I was helping my friend create a business plan. So she, the hours that she had earned, through counseling or coaching, she offered me an hour, to spend time with her and help her create her own business plan. So yeah, so professional services, can be exchanged when the trust is established. I want to make that perfectly clear as well too. And then you can track the cumulative hours within the entire time bank. So if you get in, say, at a series 6, okay, and you're looking at the periodic updates of the entire time bank, and in this case, it's the karmic margin call project time bank. Once series 7 starts to be issued, that means your $1 turns into $2. Okay, so once it goes into series 8, then the $2 become $4. So just kind of like looking at it in the big picture, once you get up to 20 layers or 20 series away, that's when your $1 looks like $1 million. Okay, and then that's where it taps out, and that's where it expires and it reaches its maturity. So each series issued means the investment doubles. All right, so we're back now. At the moment, the viewer had just watched the pre-recorded material, and I kind of had to cut out of there pretty quickly because my daughter had come into the room while I was recording that. But but to wrap it all up, it was really just going through the numbers for those who are in alignment or who are in agreement that there really is not a need for for social hierarchy, or for hierarchy determined by financial wealth. What we're really talking about is distributing or redistributing $5 quadrillion of wealth amongst the 8 billion people in the world. You divide that out, that's about $500,000 to every man, woman, and child, on this planet.